2025 was the most violent year since World War II, according to a new study. The Peace Research Institute Oslo says it recorded 65 active conflicts across 35 countries last year, the highest since 1946. That's double the previous year's figure. More than 255,000 people were killed in conflict-related violence, mainly driven by the wars in Ukraine and Gaza, clashes involving India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, as well as violence in Sudan. And for more insights, we're joined by Siri Aas Rustad, who is a research director for Conditions for Violence and Peace at the Peace Research Institute in Oslo. Now, she's also the author of this report. Now, Siri, good to have you with us. Now, the report says that the world is experiencing more state-based conflicts than at any point since 1946. So are we looking at a temporary spike in violence or a fundamentally more dangerous world?
This is a good question. Of course, we have seen an increase over the past decade of more state-based violence. Whether this is a general increase overall is not sure, but it's definitely more than it was in the 2000s.
So if they're also in that report, we find that there are 255,000 people killed in conflict last year. But if we look beyond the headline number, what does the data also tell us about the human cost of today's wars and how it's affecting civilians?
Absolutely. So when we see that there's about 250,000 killed, those are, as was mentioned, of course, Ukraine and Gaza, but also Sudan, where we see a huge increase in what we call one-sided violence. Sudan is also a country where we also see a lot of humanitarian crisis, where the effect and consequences of conflict among the population is tremendous. And we see that also with the decline in aid that we have seen in the recent years. These consequences are more detrimental for people now, maybe than it was, let's say, just 5-6 years ago, because you lose the, let's say, safety network with this infrastructure, health, education that has been provided by aid. So this combined increase of violence and conflict together with the lack of aid is crucial.
Now, another interesting finding is that Asia is now the second most conflict-affected region. What is driving this trend, and how do Asia's flashpoints differ from those elsewhere?
So Asia has the second highest number of conflicts. However, most of these conflicts are centered in a few countries. So India, Myanmar, Pakistan, Afghanistan, that's where we see the main number of conflicts. However, if we look at battle-related deaths, Asia is actually decreasing compared to a lot of other regions. So it was very high during the Afghan war, but after that it has decreased and is actually towards its lower end after the Cold War. So it's a little bit different than the rest of the world.
Another significant finding then is that the number of conflicts between states, that has doubled in 1 year. Do you think countries are becoming more willing to use force to settle their disputes?
So, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's doubled since 2024. It's the highest recorded since 1946. And what we see is that a lot of these conflicts are border conflicts. So India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Cambodia, Thailand. So these are conflicts that have been there for a while, but has escalated now. Whether this is because people feel or states feel more prone to use violence, or whether it's because they feel more insecure, it's not certain. But we do see that the world is becoming more sort of insecure in, do we have someone who supports us? What do the UN do? What are the norms? Are other countries upholding the international norms that we had in the 2000s? And I think when these insecurities become bigger, it's more likely for countries to use force because they need to protect themselves. The feeling of need to protect themselves grows larger.
Now, Siri, you can't talk about a global conflict without mentioning the Middle East. That, of course, has become a major epicenter of conflict again. How much of it is due to the current aggression from parties involved in the existing conflict, and how much of it is actually driven by more historical grievances?
So you're absolutely right. We see a growing violence in the Middle East and a growing number of conflicts in the Middle East. Of course, a lot of these are rooted in old conflict lines, where it seems that especially Israel are now allowed to act on these conflicts. So Israel is involved in at least 5 different conflicts, both internally and externally, and seems to be one of the bigger aggressors in the world at the moment. Then we do see, and this is of course not just something that we see in 2025, we see this in 2026, and even in the last 24 hours we have seen another escalation in the war between Iran and the US, with implications for a lot of the surrounding countries. So we do see a heightened escalation here. Whether this will grow into a larger regional war, or whether we are able to stop this and de-escalate is not certain.
Siri, thank you for breaking down the details of this report for us. That was Siri Aas Rustad, who is a research director for Conditions for Violence and Peace at the Peace Research Institute in Oslo.